Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about how to eat healthy without spending a fortune. Prioritizing healthy eating is important, however, it can be expensive. So I wanted to do a video on some tips that I have to maintain a healthy diet while also not breaking the bank. So if you want to hear my tips for eating healthy on a budget, then keep on watching. My first tip to eating healthy on a budget is to avoid eating highly processed foods. And I just did a video on this topic, I'll link it up top, but the best way to ensure that you're eating a healthy diet is to limit the amount of highly processed foods that you eat. Because highly processed foods normally contain high levels of saturated fats, sugars, and oils, all things that we don't want to eat in an excessive amount. So I went to the grocery store this week. My fave is Whole Foods, but I also recommend shopping at Trader Joe's for more budget-friendly options. I have noticed that their prices are a bit better. And this is a little montage of what I picked up there. But my staples when I'm going grocery shopping are always to get a good selection of fruits and vegetables, all of which are non-processed to minimally processed, just so I have a large selection of healthy items to choose from when I'm looking for something to eat during the week. This leads me to my next tip, which is to focus on eating whole foods and to also pay attention to the calories and nutrition that you're consuming. For instance, whole foods are generally much cheaper than minimally to moderately processed foods. However, they do require more effort. An example of this is buying a whole cantaloupe versus buying the already sliced cantaloupe that comes in the plastic. Buying a whole cantaloupe, that's a non-processed item, that's how you would find it in nature, and it does require more effort because you have to put in the work of cutting it up yourself. Those are normally much cheaper than buying it pre-cut. So on one hand, you're eating whole foods and you might be putting in a little bit of effort, but in the long run, you're saving yourself money. So I always recommend eating whole foods versus the minimally processed foods that come pre-packaged if you can. Additionally, tracking nutrition and calories can also help you stick to a healthy diet. Not to be too strict about it, but a lot of the times whole foods, fruits, and vegetables are much less calorie dense than something that is highly processed or something that has already come pre-made. So by eating whole foods and cooking your own food from those ingredients rather than getting takeout, for example, you're likely eating much less calories than you would, for instance, if you would have ordered from a restaurant. And then lastly with this tip, nutrition is always good to focus on. You know, the little food pyramid, we always want to make sure that we're eating what we need to be healthy. It's also nice to make sure that you have a good variety of foods so that you're getting all of the nutrients that you need. For instance, my favorite snack is to eat Honeycrisp apples, and I love to cut them a certain way, and they're also really, really good with peanut butter and granola. Bonus points if you make your own granola, but that's like one of my favorite little healthy desserts. But if I want to just have a little snack throughout the day, I think Honeycrisp apples just cut up by themselves are so good. My next tip for eating healthy while still saving money is to eat a few nutritious meals per day rather than snacking all day. People don't realize how often snacking plays a role into why they gain weight or why they can't lose weight, and that's because everything adds up, but when you're snacking throughout the day, it feels like you're not eating a full meal, so you keep going, versus if you had just eaten a proper meal, then you wouldn't feel the need to snack all day. And snacking can also get expensive because you're just eating a little bit here and there all day, and it's like a never-ending cycle. But also, if your meals are too small or are lacking in what you need, then you're also likely to get hungrier quicker, which may also lead to snacking. So it's important that your meals at mealtime are also enough to sustain you throughout the day. And my next tip, surprise, surprise, is to drink water before every meal. One thing about water is that water is free most of the time, but I feel like it's still so hard to drink enough water throughout the day. Personally, me, I love a little Diet Coke here and there. I know I shouldn't, but I do love it. So I think it's important that I also balance that out by drinking enough water. And I find that drinking it as like a prerequisite to a meal makes it much easier to drink water because it becomes sort of like a routine. So you just always know, okay, I'm about to eat, let me make sure I drink enough water. Tying it to meal times really helps me with that. And this next tip is a big one for me, but it's to have fresh fruit and vegetables prepared so that you have an easy snack ready to go. This is a great way to save money because if you are someone who does like to snack, this will help you so that you're not spending money going to the store throughout the day to get snacks or ordering food on DoorDash. This way you have fruit and vegetables ready to go if you're someone who likes carrots and ranch, celery and ranch, or if you're like me, I'm really into fruit right now, so I love raspberries, grapes, apples, all of those things. It's really nice to have a convenient, healthy snack ready to go if you do get hungry throughout the day. And what I do when I get home is that I wash and chop all of my fruit. That way I don't have to do that every time I want fruit because this just lowers all barriers. It's literally right there ready to go and I can eat it straight out of the fridge. And also, an apple is cheaper than a bag of chips. So eating whole foods is already a healthy alternative and can also be a much cheaper alternative to eating other types of highly processed snacks. My next tip is something that I don't necessarily follow, but I know that it's helpful for a lot of people, and it's to meal prep. I will say that meal prep is a good way to ensure that food doesn't go to waste and to also ensure that food isn't getting lost in the fridge. That happens a lot. Sometimes I'll buy something and then I'll completely forget about it and it will have gone bad by the time I remember or rediscover it. So I think that meal prep is a great way to cook everything when it's fresh in your mind and have it ready to go. And especially if you're someone who's super busy, meal prep is a really good way to ensure that you're not taking the easy way out by ordering DoorDash because it's convenient. I'm guilty of that, but when you have food that's ready to go and you know it's healthy, it just makes things so much easier. And I think meal prepping is an effective option for eating healthy, and I like that it's very efficient. You're cooking everything in one day. The reason that I don't love meal prepping is that I don't love reheating food for days. Like, I'll make enough usually for 1 to 2 days, so that's why I personally don't meal prep, just because I do have the time to cook through the week. But if you are super busy, it's an awesome choice. This next tip is for anyone who is specifically trying to lose or maintain their weight. If you're someone who's trying to eat healthy with the purpose of losing weight, then I definitely recommend to do a calorie deficit. Scientifically, that's one of the best ways to lose weight. But that being said, my tip to go along with that is that if you are doing a calorie deficit, you should stick to it 7 days a week. A lot of times when folks try calorie deficit and it doesn't work, it's because they're not actually sticking to it, in the sense that either they're not tracking everything that they're eating or they're not sticking to it all the time. Because even if you do a calorie deficit 5 days a week, just during the week, if you're going out on the weekends and eating whatever, you're not going to lose weight because you're not sticking to the calorie deficit. So my tip to that is make sure you stick with it. I'll also include some healthy meals that I like to make if you need any ideas for healthy eating, but I definitely recommend sticking to the calorie deficit if you're doing it, because that's the best way to see results. My next tip when you're wanting to eat healthier is to make certain swaps when you're cooking and baking. So I'll list them off now, some swaps that can be really good if you want to go for a healthy alternative. I often do that when I'm cooking and baking, and I just think that it's a great way to sneak things in. For example, if you make zucchini bread, great way to sneak in a fruit there, or also if you want to switch out an unhealthy ingredient for something that's a bit healthier. For example, swapping out butter for applesauce in baking reduces both the amount of fat in the item and its calories. Additionally, swapping out oil for Greek yogurt adds protein and also adds a creamy element. Replacing sugar with mashed bananas or applesauce adds more of a natural sweetness and also adds more fiber. Another swap, and this is something that I like to do, is to swap out all-purpose or white flour with whole wheat flour. I do that when I make my cookies and pancakes, and it comes out just as good. And lastly, one of my favorite tips when baking is to replace chocolate chips with dark chocolate. I'm more of a dark chocolate person, so this is something that I love to do. And if you're not a huge fan of dark chocolate, you can also go with one that's a lower percentage. That way it tastes more like milk chocolate. When cooking, some swaps that I like to do are to swap out mayo for avocado or hummus. I typically like to do this when I make egg salad, but it just limits the amount of unhealthy fat. Something else I like to do when cooking is to replace breadcrumbs with any type of crushed nuts, specifically like almonds or walnuts. I think are a really good option. Even pecans are great when you want to use a healthier alternative for breadcrumbs. Down to the last two, I think it's always a great idea if you can to reduce soy sauce with low sodium soy sauce. Even if you want to add a little salt on your own, it's better to use the low sodium and add it yourself versus having all of the salt in it from the start. And lastly, something else that I do often is to replace regular French fries with sweet potato fries. Sweet potatoes are slightly healthier than regular potatoes, so it's a really great option if you still want to eat fries to opt for sweet potato fries instead. My next tip for eating healthy that will also allow you to stay within your budget is to buy fruits and vegetables based on when they're in season. Seasonal fruits and vegetables are fresher, they taste better, and they're cheaper when you buy them according to when they're in season. Seasonal fruits and vegetables are fresher, they taste better, and they're typically cheaper. So I'll share some info now about when many common fruits and vegetables are in season. So in spring, from about March to May, the fruits that are in season are strawberries, apricots, cherries, mangoes, and pineapples. The vegetables that are in season in spring are asparagus, artichokes, peas, radishes, and fava beans. And the greens that are in season during the spring are arugula, spinach, and Swiss chard. Now onto summer, from about June to August. The fruits that are in season are watermelon, peaches, plums, nectarines, blackberries, blueberries, and raspberries. The vegetables that are in season during the summer are corn, zucchini, bell peppers, tomatoes, and eggplant. And some greens in season during the summer are lettuce, basil, and fresh herbs like cilantro, parsley, and mint. During the fall, from September to November, some fruits in season are apples, pears, cranberries, grapes, figs, and pomegranates. Some of the vegetables in season during the fall are pumpkins, squash, whether it's butternut or acorn, sweet potatoes, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. And the greens in season during the fall are kale, mustard greens, and collard greens, just in time for Thanksgiving. And lastly, in the winter, from December to February, some of the fruits in season are orange, grapefruit, lemons, limes, persimmons, and pomegranates. Some of the vegetables in season during the winter are carrots, parsnips, beets, cabbage, turnips, and potatoes. And last but not least, some of the greens in season during the winter are kale, collard greens, and Brussels sprouts. So hopefully I covered some of your faves in that list. And if there's any fruits and vegetables and greens that I didn't cover that you're interested about, feel free to look those items up so you can find out when all of your faves are in season. My next tip that will help you stay on a budget when you're trying to eat healthy is to utilize canned and also frozen fruits and vegetables. Frozen fruits and vegetables often have the same nutrients as fresh fruits and vegetables while also lasting longer, and they're also often more affordable affordable. Canned items with low sodium, such as beans and tuna, are relatively cheap, but also high in protein. From time to time, I love canned green beans. They're super easy to make, and I always like to have some in my pantry because they last for a long time. I also love frozen broccoli and cauliflower. Specifically, if I know I'm going to be out of town, I like to stock up on frozen vegetables and put them in my freezer so I know that I have at least something to eat at home when I come back. Frozen fruits are also always great to have on hand because they're great for smoothies. But when buying frozen or canned fruits and vegetables, just be sure to check the labels to make sure that there are no added ingredients. Down to the last 3 now. My next tip for eating healthy while staying on budget is to limit the amount of times that you eat out and also the amount of times that you order things like DoorDash, Uber Eats, Deliveroo, all of that. Cooking at home not only will save you money, but it also lets you control what ingredients are going into your food. And if you are someone who loves to eat out, I'm the same way. I recommend designating a day of the week or a number of days per week that you allow yourself to eat out, or order DoorDash if that's something that you do enjoy. But since restaurants often add a lot of sugar and oils to their food, it's always much easier to eat healthy when you yourself are doing the cooking. My second to last tip for eating healthy on a budget is to eat less meat. And this may be controversial, however, my sister and her boyfriend have been vegetarian for years, and I often find that when we go to the grocery store together, their bill is much cheaper than mine because they're vegetarian, and meat is often one of the most expensive grocery items and usually costs way more than vegetables. Trying meatless meals such as chickpea curry, or my favorites, black bean tacos and peanut noodles, are a great way to still get protein in, but because they do not contain meat, they are much cheaper to make. And my final tip for eating healthy while not spending a fortune is to stick to your grocery list when you're at the store. And also never go grocery shopping when you're hungry. But one way that I make sure that I stay within budget is I stick to my list, and I always know exactly what I'm going to get from the store before I walk in. So I'll share with you guys a typical grocery list for me, but I always love to utilize the Notes app. It makes it so easy because I can never forget my grocery list at home. It's always right here on my phone, and it also allows me to check off the items as I go without having them completely disappear. That way I can use the same grocery list week after week, even if I'm tweaking it a little bit, and it just makes it so much easier. And by sticking to a grocery list, you're not buying items that you shouldn't be buying, and you're also not going off script to where you get to the register and you're like, whoa, where did all these items come from? I hope you guys enjoyed these tips on how to eat healthy without spending a fortune. And please, if you have any other tips, feel free to drop them down in the comments. I would love to see them. But be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.